It's not often life is forced to a halt, forced to slow down on command, brought to a screeching stop. It's not often the noise is called to a whisper and the bustle reined in. Stay home, they say. Stay safe. Stay in. The streets are fogged with quiet. Once busy roads are like a ghost town. Every human being walking, staying 6 feet distanced. It's a tragedy to the mind and the soul. A break in the system, burdened busy bodies we're used to. The torture of the routine we used to groan to lift ourselves up to is now the exact routine we crave. In these four walls, caught in my front yard, I've been forced to be ever more in touch with myself. And all the places I shut out through meaningless productivity have flourished like vines from their cages, taking up spaces where I told them not to go. It's scary, yet beautiful, to be in tune again with home. With the music deep in my spirit, with the slow pace of my heartbeat pulsing, a reminder of the life in me that I don't enjoy enough, the bittersweet cup of living.
In 2020, the world stopped because of the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and many others due to police brutality. And at that time, of course, COVID-19 also was part of that framework.
I'm a contingent worker at Viatris, a legacy Pfizer company. The statements and opinions expressed here by me are mine and mine alone, and they do not represent those of Pfizer or Viatris.
They're here to be a witness to the very end of his time on earth.
A lot of people, or some people in the world, don't believe that this COVID is actually real, this pandemic. But if you look at our logbook, the names never end. This is just what we did during COVID. It has every decedent that came here, where they were logged in our trailer, in our emergency trailer, okay? Just look at the names. They just never, ever end. Look how many names. There's probably 35 names on a page, and they just
It's been very
going.
taxing for me, spiritually, psycho-emotionally, primarily, in terms of my experience dealing with COVID-19. Nas, Mobb Deep, you know what I'm saying? So Marcy Projects kind of gets his hype, gets his fame because of people like Jay-Z.
3 days later, they called me and told me I was positive for COVID. Called my family and FaceTime. When I FaceTime, that was the first time I'm seeing my tongue out my mouth. The doctor and the nurses told me it was just swole, and there was never mention it came out my mouth. That was a horrible experience.
The world has reached another grim milestone in the history of the
coronavirus pandemic is showing no signs of slowing down.
Their point is the cure can't be worse than the illness itself.
Yeah.
What is your response to them?
The illness is death. What is worse than death?
Well, what if somebody commits suicide because they can't pay their bills?
Yeah, but the illnesses may be my death as opposed to your death.
That's the Hutchinson River that leads out into the Long Island Sound. And you can see the drawbridge every once in a while go up, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if you can see it from here. Cool thing is, in the summertime, when they have 4th of July, you can see fireworks from this window. You don't even have to leave. People on the street don't ask you. They don't ask you for your intimate feelings. Most of the time, people don't want to know what happened to your arm. They don't want to hear the whole, spiel coming out. And you know what? And you don't want to tell them, because then you'll be crying on every street corner. Because this is not something people want to know. And this is not something you want to tell, because I haven't talked about this. Even to the closest people in my life, I haven't talked about this. About the after effects, the effects during is horrific. You would just hope that the memory has some healing power, that you don't have to remember it. The anxiety, the PTSD, the whole shit. And with this, they don't want to know, Even the closest people don't want to really know. It's scaring. It's scary to them. It's looking at death and knowing what it looks like.
Those kids have polio? I didn't know. I was in the way. Sorry. Okay. And have really clean hands.
The virus activates the immune system. All viruses activate the immune system. They're an intruder. So they get into your body and your body sends off the alarm. Intruder, right? So all of your cells go to attack it. And then that normal things that happen in your body, like normal blood clotting, meaning, oh, I got a cut, it'll clot, but I didn't have a cut, so it shouldn't clot. That went off. So in some people, it was that their immune system fought this virus so hard that it started fighting itself. It started actually attacking lung instead of attacking the virus. It started actually causing the blood to clot in a way that wasn't even about the virus. It was an over response, a really amped up response, and that's why one of the first drugs we found that worked was steroids, because it basically dampened the immune response.
Anyone who is critically ill is going to, basically send all of their blood to their critical organs, and so they're going to try and preserve their heart, their kidneys, their brain, and so it often means that you are not delivering blood to the arms and the legs and other areas, and so we know that that can happen in addition to blood clot. We know that there are more blood clots with COVID, so one could draw a connection between those two.
2010 and 2014, 2 days away from each other. My father was 210 after 7 years of bone cancer, and my mother, and that was August 12th, and my mother was 214, August 14th, from pancreatic. He went in 7 years, she went in 6 months. You want to talk about COVID, cancer. How much research have they been doing of cancer and they haven't cured it, or any deep forms of it, You never get over the death of your parents, man. And that even when they die naturally, you never get over that. You may have levels of acceptance, but getting over it, nah, never do. Unless, even if they were bad parents, you don't get over it, because there's always that. They made you, and that's why people try to reconnect, even if their father beat them and they were ignored. But good parents, you never get over that, man. They were salt of the earth. You just don't. That's something you carry, and that's actually a testament to them not getting over that. You can accept it, but that's a testament to how good of a parenting they've done. My daughter's 27. One thing about COVID, surviving it, I got to see her get married in October. Small affair, but I thought I'd never see that. She got married on Halloween, I thought. And she's the reason I saw it. My daughter called emergency and told me they will break down the door if you don't open it. And I was coughing to the point of I couldn't talk in that bedroom. And I was dragged out of here on a girl, but I was too weak to even fight him. Finally I gave in, but I didn't want to go. My daughter was the reason I went. She saved my life. She was the main reason that I'm here. It's a lot to put on somebody that young. She's only a 27-year-old kid, and you're responsible for somebody's life. So, yeah, it was tough on her, and I'm sure it took a toll. And it's made things a little awkward because, kids aren't supposed to save your life, So, it's tough. If one person wears a mask because of what I said here today, then the job is done. If people social distance because of what I've said today, then the job is done. Because, fellas, this is real. This is real. You can't make this shit up.
Illnesses may be my death as opposed to your death. You said, they said, the cure is worse than the illness. The illness is death. How can the cure...
Let me just make this. It's such a mess. My girlfriend would say, you didn't fucking fix the kitchen table? And I'd be like, no, I didn't. I had other shit to worry about. And then I always use the arm card. I lost an arm, damn it, leave me alone. You can't put this on dry. It'll just rip you to shreds. You get some sanitizer. Great. Now the sanitizer is giving me artistic differences. Today I wore it for 5 hours. My top was 3. And you get the excess if you can, because without wetness. And then you find the right angle. Came in easy. Okay, now I'm in, and the bone is already desensitized for today. Every day is a new feeling. Like it hurt this morning, doesn't hurt now. Might hurt tomorrow morning. Thumb moves, open. You see, as long as I keep the arm tense, I can close. The minute I relax it, opens. COVID became a thing was, I was already sick. By the time I knew of it, I was already sick. It just swept over me before I was direly sick before I even knew what it was. I was coughing up a lung, and next thing I knew, I didn't think I had COVID. I thought I had a cough. It was already too late. It's an assassin. It's the worst assassin ever. It came and it took me and I didn't even know. The best assassins in movies are the ones who kill you before you even know what's happening. And COVID is that. Oh man, it's the #1 with a bullet assassin. COVID was, you got it and you're sick and you're coughing up a lung and you're in the hospital and you still don't know what you have until somebody tells you, oh, you got COVID. And everybody was trying to get in to see me. My son's NYPD turned away. My daughter couldn't see me. We were only in phone contact. People from my job, officers who I won't name, were impersonating family members to try to get to see me. Still couldn't get in. Nobody was allowed in the hospitals, and you're alone. You're on an island with shitty food. and you're on an island and you're alone and you're saying, I'm gonna die alone, which is practically everybody's worst fear, to die alone. Total isolation, hallucinations. I don't know what was real, what wasn't real. I hallucinated that I died. And there were mariachis, believe it or not, playing at my, as I lay on the ground, dying. And faceless people that you don't know, that you're hallucinating that they're stealing your things and other shit. I had no doubt in my mind that they couldn't save me. My oxygen levels were low. My lungs, fire is not the word. There was no breathing. Breathing was not an option. You had oxygen tubes up your nose. In my delirium, I would pull them out. And I don't remember a lot of it. I was fighting the attendants that they had to sedate me. I don't remember it. I fell out of bed once. I remember that because it hurt like nothing I've ever experienced. And the pain is so bad sometimes that you don't mind it. It almost seems like, oh man, I could die now. They wanted to intubate me, and if you intubated me, I was gonna die. And actually, I didn't want to be intubated. I asked my daughter to let me die. And she wouldn't let me. But I thought the minute they put me under, I'm done. I'm never gonna come out of this. I've seen enough doctor shows to know that, actually I got it from a doctor show that 50% of the people who went under died. And when I came out of intubation, you know, nobody was more surprised. Intubation is like you go to sleep and you either wake up or you stay asleep, nothing in between. Dreams, bad dreams, and nightmares, but nothing in between. And you wake up and then your arm is a mangled mess. Before intubation, my arm was okay. After intubation, it wasn't. It wasn't dead before, and it was dead after, and I'm not, look. So, here we go. The arm was ripped open for whatever reasons. To get it oxygen, I don't know. All I know is that 1 minute, you know, you got a left arm, and the next minute it's so damaged, and you know what, you're like, oh man, it'll heal. Because why else would I be sent home if it wasn't going to heal? I was back in the hospital 2 days after. But I'm like, they're sending me home. That shit's going to be all right. I'm going to be using this arm once it heals up. And that, you saw the pictures. That arm was never going to heal. And like, again, I'm not a doctor. Obviously. I got a GED, not an MD. But, you know. And you knew when they were taking you back to the hospital, you knew your shit was gonna be gone. You knew they were gonna take it. And man, you know, luckily I'm right-handed. If that can be lucky, I can imagine what my signature would look like without my left hand, but if that could be considered lucky, I don't feel that lucky. And I guess, you know, that's the American way. You're given a chance at living again, even impaired, and you don't grasp it, and you're not happy about it, or as happy as you should be, because we're jaded. We want everything, and you can't have everything. And I don't always feel lucky to be alive, you know, but until we find out what death really is, I guess I am.
A lot of people, or some people in the world, don't believe that this COVID is actually real, this pandemic. But if you look at our logbook, the names never end. This is just what we did during COVID. It has every decedent that came here, where they were logged in our trailer, in our emergency trailer, okay? Just look at the names. They just never, ever end. Look how many names. There's probably 35 names on a page, and they just keep going and going. So this is our emergency trailer that we needed to set up sometime in March, because the amount of cases that Hebrew Free Burial was receiving was something that we never dreamed of in our life. Okay? Right now we have emergency PPE stored here, because even that's in such short supply, and we don't know when this pandemic is going to end, so we constantly stock up on gowns, masks, goggles, gloves, everything that we need to protect ourselves. When we got this trailer up and running, we probably had 25 or 30 funerals that people needed to come in here in an emergency. They needed refrigeration, and the calls were just, you couldn't imagine how the calls kept coming and coming and coming. People who needed help, people with COVID, who had COVID, their father or mother passed away, and the family had COVID. So we needed to do something fast and at the spur of the moment. So we purchased this trailer. We had a generator outside for 3 months every day until we could finally get this hooked up. And this trailer was full. Every shelf down the aisle was full. And every day we were doing between 8 and 15 funerals, 6 days a week. So people who say the COVID thing is made up, they really have no idea. this is our refrigerator at Hebrew Free Burial. It holds approximately 10 people. In the back you can see that is a patient who has COVID, one of our COVID cases, covered with the sheet. It wasn't sufficient during the pandemic, so that's why we moved to the trailer. We used both this and the trailer. We were so full here just with people of COVID. Now remember, all the COVID people had orange, they came in orange body bags. So this whole room was filled with orange body bags. It was a sight to actually see, just person after person in bright orange, body bags with their names written on them. It was heart-wrenching. We also get people from all around the country who can't afford a funeral, whether it be in Los Angeles, Phoenix, Florida, and somehow the body comes up to us. We get the body up through donations, through people who give charity, and we give them the same funeral that everyone else has here. A rabbi, a minyan, Kaddish is said every day. Okay, so it doesn't matter who you are or what you are, everyone is treated the same at Hebrew Free Burial.
During COVID, we all came in and we started, everything was with PPE to make sure everybody was safe. And no one took any chances of anything. First thing we did was we unwrapped these suits. As you can see, they're all one piece. Zip it on. Protection, just in case they tear or something, and these go up higher above everything else.
So we're very fortunate, actually blessed, to have a cadre of volunteers who attend burials when there's no family or friends to attend the burial. At a Jewish funeral, at a Jewish burial, there's a special prayer that's said. It's called the Kaddish. Kaddish is a prayer that's associated with mourners, and there are various versions of it. Some of them are incorporated into daily services, but there's a very special Kaddish that is recited only at the time of burial. And you need a quorum traditionally of men at the burial to be able to have this prayer recited. And we have this cadre of volunteers from the Staten Island and sometimes New Jersey area who come sometimes on a daily basis and attend funerals of people who they don't know. And they listen to the eulogy, because our rabbi always gives a eulogy even when we know almost nothing about a person. And that's actually the case with the burial we're doing today. We know very, very little about this man who died of COVID. And they're here to be a witness to the very end of his time on earth.
For me personally, was recognizing pretty quickly that for individuals that lost loved ones, that the rituals and those really important transition points between having someone die and then burying them, saying goodbye, all of those rituals, all of those very important traditions were completely disrupted by COVID-19. So it wasn't just loss, it was loss compounded by these very foreign ways of saying goodbye. That was a huge part of their pain, was the loss in these sort of regular traditions for grieving.
That's the front of the chapel. There's a screen there. This can be webcast anywhere in the world. Most of the times it is. This is one of the tools that we used during COVID to help all the families that were just scattered and could not attend the funeral. We can't really talk about the COVID-19 crisis without talking about the pure devastation that it had on the families and the extended families and the friends. I don't think anyone in this world does not know someone who passed from COVID. And the funerals that we had was just so different from what the families are used to. No one could attend. It brought the whole funeral industry into a different light.
The pandemic got really bad really fast. I think that's what really took our breath away. It was, I would say, controlled mayhem. We had never experienced anything like this. Our average burials per year is about 360, which comes out to about 7 per week. And here we were having to do 12 in one day.
I think Pine Lawn Memorial Park one day had 75 funerals, which is just an astronomical amount of burials to handle in one day.
And it was, you couldn't even stop to think about it because if you did, you would just be overcome and really it would stop you in your tracks.
It was devastating. That was a time in Brooklyn and in New York City where they had a lot of tapings of video footage of refrigerated trucks where they were just putting all of the bodies into these massive trucks in front of hospitals. And so it was a devastating time for my family.
Look at hospital, they put the bodies in the back of a freezer truck, y'all. For real, they put the bodies in 18-wheeler, y'all. It's hard to believe this.
Well, the mobile morgues are basically refrigerated or freezer trucks. We now know, and all the hospitals know, in the beginning, they weren't prepared. They were putting the bodies one next to each other on the floor on like mats or rugs. But that soon was not enough, so they all had to build emergency racks where they can store 50, 100, 200 bodies in these refrigerators. They were in every hospital in the city, had them.
Such a surge of death and an overwhelming number of bodies that the funeral industry was not able to accommodate this surge. New York City was at that point the worst hit. The other parts of the country were not in the same situation as New York. New York was really, ground zero for COVID in the spring. There was a field hospital set up in Central Park, and hospitals had to have these morgue trailers. And the medical examiner's office in New York had 60 of these trailers around the city. And each the way they configured their trailers, those trailers could hold 100 bodies. So at certain points, there were 6,000 bodies in these portable morgues all around New York City.
Most problematic part was that none of these people seen their loved one. And now they want you to open the casket. They wanted mom or dad dressed in clothing. And if the body was not treated and the COVID was not killed, you know, it just ran a greater risk of them catching COVID. So a lot was not known about this COVID in the beginning. You know, we had kind of a learning curve as to how to treat it, what we needed to do.
Families came for the funerals. We limited it to one car. They had to stay in the car. They couldn't come out of the car. They had to be masked, and the rabbi would conduct the funeral on his phone, and it was heartbreaking.
So there's a lot of these stories, and just the families grieving and crying, the people calling all night, help me, please help me, can you take my funeral? It was just terrible for all of us, and it's every funeral home in the city that had the same problems.
I felt I was surrounded by death, 360 degrees.
It reminds me of what went on at 9/11, you know, the same trauma, that the people are just so beaten up. All of their religious beliefs are changed because every funeral is set to some sort of religion, not religion, but this COVID broke all of that. There's no chain where the families could come in, they could grieve, friends could help them, come and comfort them. Everything was done in an hour and out to the cemetery, and the cemeteries were so overloaded, they gave you 10 minutes, and that's really all they can give you.
You know, one story that will show you the impact of what it was like at its worst. Every week, one of my staff people, Donna, goes to the health department and has to pick up death certificates. They have to be manually picked up. And usually when she goes, she picks up 6 or 8, or, you know, if it's been busy, 10. And that day when she went to pick up the death certificates, there were 72. And Donna, who's a very strong woman, broke down and started crying.
Well, we're here in Lake City, Florida. This is Columbia County. We're here at the courthouse here, where if anything happens, it's right here. KKK rallies, Black Matter Alive rallies, anything, mostly gonna be right here. It's a nice little spot. There wasn't much to do, but I like to travel. You know, I like to get out. You know, even if I don't do anything but go somewhere and get a hotel and just chill out, you know, just to get away from the town, you know, but I do a little shopping and stuff, you know, or go visit family. You know, well, I work for a transport company, you know, so I work with veterans, and when it hit, I mean, a lot of people wasn't really taking it serious, you know, but we did necessary steps of gloving up, mask, sanitizer, but it happens, you know, it happens. You know, you can't be too careful because that's when you're definitely gonna get it. You know, and for me, I just happened to be at work one day and I just brought a guy here and I just wasn't feeling good, you know, so I asked my boss, can I go home? And he said it was okay. As I got home, I started feeling a little worse, you know, so I went to the hospital, called my wife, said I'm going to the hospital. And got to the hospital, they checked me out, did a test, and let me go. And 3 days later, they called me and told me I was positive for COVID. And my heart just dropped, you know, because I knew I have underlying conditions. And, you know, even though I'm a strong guy, it don't matter how strong he is. If it hits you, it's gonna bring you down. I felt like I was hit by a semi-truck. I was just that weak where I didn't want to do anything. And where I was, you know, starting to breathe heavy, you know, having shortness of breath. You know, I couldn't get my breath. It took about an hour before they saw me, but the doctor wanted to send me home. And, you know, and I had told him, I said, sir, I can't hardly breathe. and then I have asthma and bronchitis. So he said, well, let me speak to my supervisor. So he spoke to a supervisor, and he come back and said, we're going to admit you. I mean, my wife was worried the whole time. Every time you get a phone call, you know, she's expecting bad news. Because at one time, the doctors had told her it wasn't nothing else they can do for me.
Because everyone has a different reaction. It goes from the spectrum with sniffles to being in the ICU going, you're going to die. So you don't know where, how, even if you contract this, you don't know where you're going to be. The majority of if you're a betting man, you would say you would be very asymptomatic, or because the majority of the population is. Anthony's mom Googled us, and it essentially found my paper, and she emailed me. And I thought it was a joke at first. I was like, okay, it's just a random. We get so many of these random emails regarding something. So I was just texted back, okay, I'm happy to help, but please, do you have a picture showing your son regarding his condition? So she sent me the picture, and I was like, okay, I know I can help you. We've done this before. I know how to treat this condition. And the reality of it is, no matter the surgery I planned him will give him a better quality of life, because the way she described it, and from my previous experience with these patients, they have a very poor quality of life because they can't eat and they can't talk. And as people, we're social animals, and that eliminates 80% of your kind of living, just if you can't eat and you can't talk and you can't socialize, go out in public. So I knew right away with that conversation I had through email that I could help Anthony out.
Now after I got COVID and they admit me, they put me on where they put those things up your nose to breathe. And the young lady told me, I'm gonna try this to see how much oxygen you're getting. Well, I wasn't getting enough, so she put the whole face mask on. And once she put the mask on, she said, it's gonna work better for you. I called my wife and told her I'm admitted, you know. After that, I really don't know what happened because I was out for 3 weeks on a ventilator. My breathing was bad, my lungs was failing, and they were trying to get more oxygen to me. When you have COVID, they incubate you and put you in a specialty bed, which turns you over on your stomach for 12 hours a day. So my thing is, they say when you turn over like that for so long, all your fluids come out. And as my fluids come out, my tongue came out. So I'm thinking people wasn't paying attention, you know, because that tongue didn't come out all by itself at one time. You know, it had to come out slowly, you know. So that's when it went down. For me, I didn't know it was out until I woke up. So I kind of tried to build my strength up to get my phone to call my family. And I got a hold of them and FaceTime them. When I FaceTime them, that was the first time I'm seeing my tongue out my mouth. The doctor and the nurses told me it was just swole. You know, never mentioned it came out my mouth. That was a horrible experience. I mean, for my tongue to be sticking out 3 inches, not being able to put food in my mouth, and then with the tongue, it was heavy. It kind of kept my head leaning down, you know. And I always want to pull it up, but it always goes down because they had to wrap it. And it's already heavy, now you're putting wrap on it, so it's a little bit more heavier. And then with it being so heavy, it sat on my bottom teeth, and it sat there too long, it made them real loose, so they had to pull them. And now that gives me a little problem speaking because of the teeth missing.
The unique issue with the giant tongue is that it acts like an orthodontic device, and it weighs on those anterior teeth and flares those anterior teeth forward. So it gets out of position, and it actually, you can't use those teeth anymore. They become a point where you have to extract them. What happens is they also braid into the tongue itself, so they start cutting into the tongue, the underbelly to the tongue. So it braids and cuts the tongue, which causes more trauma to that area. But the tongue is so vascular, within 2 weeks, it looks like nothing ever happened. But the procedure itself is very simple and straightforward. And literally it took Anthony, I told him, man, this would literally take him an hour. It took about 45 minutes to do that surgery, and it changed his whole life.
I'm able to eat. I think I taste better than I tasted before. When I got COVID, yeah, I lost smell. I couldn't smell my food. And then I didn't eat nothing because I couldn't smell it. But now I kind of eat what I want, but I have to take my time chewing and having a drink after to make sure it go down, because it's different having a half a tongue than versus a full tongue. Yeah. From what I hear and what I see, I think my case is one of the worst ones out there. But for the ones I've seen and talked to, I think I have the worst case. You know, but COVID's real, and I mean, it's impacted the whole world. It's different, you know. We can't live our daily lives like we used to, you know. So, I mean, we all have to respect each other, wear your mask, and stop gathering around in crowds without a mask, even if it's family, because we don't know where the next person is being. And that's really why COVID is continuing to go on.
Caught up in the webs of society's do's and do nots and success schemes, the outside world doesn't have an answer to this one. I think of this as an extended Ash Wednesday. A reminder that we are dust formed, and to dust we return. A grim but real reminder that life is unpredictable, that we cannot control it, and that we shouldn't try. For it is peaceful to ride the waves of uncertainty than to scream for them to calm down. For who are you to tell fate what to do?
How's it going, sir?
Captain Mark Hitsa. I'm a public affairs officer with the Rhode Island Army National Guard. And the National Guard is here at the test site performing a number of functions, including running traffic control for the PCR test, which you see behind me, as well as running the Binex Now rapid test out of the Dunkin' Donuts Center behind the camera.
No patients, but okay for staff. Okay.
So during COVID, our floor, which is Podium 7, was one of the COVID floor. So, and I vividly live like the people with COVID every single day. And COVID is a real thing. And I have seen people die from COVID.
We were floated to the inpatient units to help out the COVID units and to help out the nurses there. I know there's been a lot of like healthcare people who have had it like much worse than I have personally.
I tested one of the first people for COVID. I remember my hand shaking when I went in the room. But fighting the pandemic in the hospital, and my husband's an intensive care doctor, yeah, super scared, super scared. Trusting in science, trusting that these masks work. But I remember my hand going to do this test. You know, you have to stick it up someone's nose, and basically when you pull it out, it has these little edges on it, and so there's this risk when you pull it out, if you fling it too much, that some of the virus can go through the air. And so I remember sticking it in this woman's nose and then trying to like carefully pull it out so I didn't fling it, and then messing up on the way out of the room, taking my gloves off in the wrong order. Yeah, sure, it was terrible.
It was a huge undertaking because we had to do it both for the main medical center here in Lebanon, New Hampshire, but also for all of our kind of member hospitals and to work with other hospitals around the state. There are areas where it got up to 1 out of every 4 patients in the hospital had COVID. We got up to a point where we had, I think at the highest it was over 270,000 new cases in a day. We were having days where we had over 4,000 people in the country that were dying from this illness. Most recently, we've had days that are down around 130,000 new infections, and It's interesting that we, at this point, are calling that a success. It still is a huge number of people, but it's down quite a bit from the 270,000.
Like if I have COVID, it's on probably my mouth, my nose, and my eyes, my mucous membranes, and I cough. And the big controversy earlier on was how far does that cough go that could infect someone? And that's where the 6 feet came, because basically we're saying the cough has a droplet, and that droplet can travel 6 feet and then it'll drop to the ground. So if I coughed on someone within 6 feet and that cough got on their hands and they touched their eyes, you know, on something they shared and they touched their eyes, touched their nose. We all touch our face all the time. We don't know we're doing it. That's how it spreads. It spreads from someone coughing on someone else, someone kissing or hugging or some sort of contact, whether it be, you know, roughhousing or sports related, just contact where your body touches someone else, and the virus can go from that. The cough, which goes 6 feet. And then early on there was this idea of aerosolization and airborne, and what does that mean? And I mean, there are cases, especially on that cruise ship early on, where people weren't near each other and they got it. So that brought up the question of, okay, it's not just 6 feet. It's that this thing that I coughed out, the tiny, tiny, tiny little particles of spit, tiny, tiny, can travel more than 6 feet, go in a vent, and come out in another room. And so that's the airborne part of it.
But one thing that we know in terms of COVID-19 is that most of it comes from close contact with infected individuals. And we understand that the amount that the other individual has impacts how easily it is to transmit. So individuals with very high what's called viral burdens are more likely to transmit than those that have very low burdens. The issue is, and it became very clear through the course of this pandemic, is that the amount of virus that you have does not necessarily correlate with how sick you are. So when I really did start to get nervous about COVID-19 more than anything was when we found out how easily it could spread from people who had no symptoms at all.
People can spread asymptomatic. The other disease, it's a very smart virus like that. You know, if you have flu, you want to be curled up in a bed. You want to be curled up in a bed and not out coughing on people because it hurts your body. You want to just be curled up and away from everyone. This virus, some people were able to spread it without even being sick. So we didn't even know where it was. By the time, we didn't even know it was here when it was already here. So we're 10 steps behind the virus. That's why it got spread so quick.
Those individuals with no symptoms that are less likely to adhere to the guidelines of the CDC were the cause, I think, of a lot of the community spread that we were seeing.
I was direly sick before I even knew what it was. I was coughing up a lung, and next thing I knew, I didn't think I had COVID. I thought I had a cough. It was already too late. It's an assassin. It's the worst assassin ever.
So you can get the illness, and basically anyone can get the illness, but then you're asking who's going to develop severe COVID and death and hospitalization. And sometimes we don't know. Sometimes healthy people will get it. So I think there early on when we started seeing these young doctors in New York City die, that was like, oh my goodness, it's not like I'm protected because I'm young. But so obesity, so having, if you're a little bit fatter, if you have diabetes, if you have blood pressure issues, those were the ones early on and age. Age was a big factor too. Although I saw, in March, April, and May, there were some 90-year-olds that just, walked through this without much of a problem. So it wasn't an absolute. There were no absolutes that this 90-year-old's going to die and this 40-year-old's going to live. You could never say that. I mean, you would say it the first time you went in, oh, sure, but then it didn't come true. You would lose patients you didn't know you were going to lose.
I was a little concerned that if I got it, that I could have a severe case just like anyone else. I didn't think I was protected from potentially having a bad outcome. But I was more afraid for my family. I was afraid for my mother, and I was afraid for my mother-in-law, who's in her 90s. I was really, really fixated on them not going out and making sure whatever resources need to protect them, we need to marshal them so that they do not have to have any interaction with the outside world if at all possible.
The hardest thing, it's where you're doing everything you possibly can and an individual is just not going to improve. And so we saw a lot of the inflammatory complications, and even if we had a medicine to work on the virus, it was the body's immune response, and as it was ramping up to fight off the virus, it was knocking out other systems. We could not, despite anything we did, get enough oxygen in. And there were entire teams that were working to position them so we could improve that. But it was just, no matter what you did, there was nothing you could do to save the patient. You know, I think the other thing that's been hard for many in this has been, you know, seeing younger individuals. And while we know that the majority of those who have died have been, and you know, we say elderly, but again, we talk about 65 and older. Many of these are people who would have lived much longer if it hadn't been for COVID. But again, we also have seen people in their 20s and 30s. The majority recover, but we've seen people who end up with strokes and other complications because of the propensity of this virus to cause blood clotting and other complications.
So hopefully that explains it, but I do understand it's real. And that also comes in with the cloth mask and the surgical mask and the N95 mask. So like the cloth mask is going to prevent you, if you have COVID, from giving it to someone, but it's not going to prevent you from getting it. The surgical mask will prevent you from giving it to someone and you from getting it. And then the N95 or the KN95 is airborne, so it protects you those little particles that went through the vent and come out from you getting it that way.
We've had experience in the past. Public health officials know that masks decrease transmission of disease from large droplets, which is mostly how COVID-19 was spread. I was not prepared for how quickly masking and social distancing would become politicized. I was actually surprised by that. I thought that given the fact that this was being really touted by officials in public health, that it made sense from a physiology standpoint, from the way things are transmitted, I was shocked at how quickly it became, if you're of a certain political party, you shouldn't wear a mask, or if you're another, you should. Social distancing became a way for the government to control individuals. I was not prepared for that. And was very dismayed by how quickly this became not about how do we protect each other and whether or not we're our brother's keeper. The answer is yes. In the pandemic, you literally are your brother and sister's keeper. I was amazed at how quickly people became selfish and decided that this was about rights rather than doing what's right.
We have to be humble and understand that, well, we didn't know everything from the beginning. As we learned it, we needed to be able to pivot and say to folks, we now have more information than we did before. And so the message may be a little differently. I may have told you that you didn't need to wear a mask before, but actually we've learned that this mask is going to be really important. Or saying to elected officials, this is a very hard choice. If we are shutting everything down, we want to be very careful about rapidly reopening things and doing it in a stepwise fashion so we can understand the impacts of every decision that we're making. So I think that there were times that we were not kind of as good about admitting that there were changes and then reacting to those changes in the science. I think as well, we at some times allowed politics to get ahead of science. And there's a lot to learn from that.
The federal government did not rise to the task of talking about this early on, investigating it early on, anything. So I guess we needed a leader. We did not have a leader. We had a leader, but that was in Dr. Fauci. So I would have gone to the experts. I would have said, experts, tell me what to do. And I would not have minimized. The worst thing you can do in a situation is minimize something and look back and say, hey, I should have done that. What if we had just rolled out masking everyone early on? Sure, some people would have been pissed off, but people wouldn't have died. I guess early on, I would have set up people more that this is a process in which we're going to make mistakes and we're learning and we're trying to do the best we can. I think it was hard to have faith that people were doing the best they can because they weren't. Some people weren't. Some people really high up weren't doing the best they can. I have to say I'm so happy I was not in charge of that. I was losing sleep over my own roles as a mom, as a wife, as a doctor in jails. I was losing sleep over it. So I almost want to reserve some, I do want to have some criticism for people because they were ignorant and let people die, and that was wrong. But a lot of other people, I really believe a lot of other people were trying as best as they could.
Hey, Daddy. Me, your princess, Jacqueline. I really need you, Dad. I really need you to wake up. I need you to come back to us, Dad. Please come back.
Hey, Dad, it's Justin. Days are getting warmer, the sun's shining longer. Summertime is coming, but it won't be the same without you. So when you wake up, and I know you'll wake up, we can dust off your wheelchair and play some basketball. I love you, miss you, and can't wait to play again.
I love you, Daddy. Mwah.
When I think about my dad and the bond we have, consistency is one of the words I think about. My dad's always been there. He's shown me so much strength. He's gone through so much in his life, and he always had a positive outlook. So I just remember him teaching me those life lessons that, you know, keep pushing through things, making through things. We would sing, he taught me how to dance, how to ride my bike. He helped me be fearless. And it was by me watching his baby that it seemed like anything I could do was possible. When my dad was in the hospital, this was the whole beginning of COVID. You know, people are trying to figure out what's going on. You're not allowed to come in, you're not allowed to be there. And all I could think about is if I'm just there with my dad, if he could just hear us, just know he's not alone, maybe it could make a difference. So my dad loves music. He was gonna be a dancer before he lost his leg, and so I made a CD that had important songs that were in his life, and then I got voice messages from his brothers and sisters, voice messages from John, Jess, and I's children and his grandchildren. So it would play throughout the day so he knows that we're there. I wanted people to know people who love him are there, and when he's in a coma, you know, we don't know what people can hear, not hear, but I just felt that if he could feel our presence, if this is the closest I can get to my dad, the closest our family can reach to him, maybe he'll hear us, and maybe he'll feel safer, and maybe he'll come up. Even though there's a pandemic going on, nothing can separate him from his family. And I wanted to be there. If I could, I would have physically been there. I used to actually stand out in the corner of the hospital and stare at my dad's window, because it was physically the closest I could technically get to him. And I would just say prayers, and I'd talk up to the window as if he was there. I'll never forget that day. I was just cleaning my room a regular day, and I felt like something, like my spirit was moved, and something said, call your dad. And I truly believe it was God. I dropped everything I was doing, called my dad, and as we're talking on the phone, I hear him like this labored breathing going on, and like his breathing's increasing, he sounds labored. I was like, Dad, I think you need to go to the hospital. I think you're sick. And he's like, I had a fever. I tried convincing him to go, but he was so scared because at that time, a lot of people of color were dying. And he was like, I don't want to go to the hospital and die. And I was like, Dad, just please go. And so we're able to convince him to go. He goes to the same hospital that actually he was flown into when he lost his leg. So that was traumatic. Went to that same hospital, and within less than 24 hours, they had intubated him. I got a call, 2 a.m. in the morning, from my dad saying they're gonna put a tube down my throat, they're gonna put me on the vent. No one's from this hospital has gotten off the vent yet. And I got my younger brother, I called my brother from Florida, we all tried to get on to say, to what we didn't know might have been the last time goodbye or just, you know, extended time. And, you know, we told we loved him, and then he got intubated.
Hey Dad, it's me, John. Just wanted to show you this cool picture of us. It's just one of my favorite pictures. Just reminds me how wonderful it is to be with you. And I know that you're gonna get through this. I believe in you.
Waking up every day and making decisions that I didn't know would either kill my father or save his life, and having that type of responsibility. It would be, I would get phoned in on rounds, hear the labs, hear what's going on, the medical side of my brain being, he's gonna die today, and my heart saying he's gonna make it. The worst was not only just getting COVID, it was getting 2 other infections. It was being on a ventilator for 33 days, his liver getting injured, his kidneys failing and have to being put on dialysis. It was clots. It was him being told that he had moderate encephalopathy and that he's not gonna wake up for a year. Him just not being able to do anything, and FaceTiming with him and knowing and seeing his body, and that's my dad, but just, it looked like his spirit was gone. It looked like he wasn't there. And my brothers, they were my rocks. If I didn't have them, I don't know what we would do. It was like, what do you do when the person you care about so much in the life, their life is like right in your hands, and you can do something that could either end that or help? You know, it keeps you up at night.
COVID was very scary to me. I mean, I was so close of dying that I can remember just teetering at the edge of life and not knowing if I would be able to pull myself back through. And I just remember just fighting to do that and to pull that through and to get there. And then waking up and seeing, you know, tubes in my throat being trached, because I was trached. And just being on the machine and trying to breathe and then off the machine and everything. For me, when I looked at that I was paralyzed for a while and I couldn't move, I was like, what is my life gonna be like now? I played sports, I sang, I danced, I loved doing all these things, and what is gonna mean for me? And just knowing that they didn't know much about this virus and stuff, and that what it can do to your body and how it attacks. It was scary. It was scary to just feel that and to have that possibility be a reality. Not knowing if I was going to be on the ventilator for the rest of my life, whether I was going to be needed a feeding tube, or even to be able to speak.
Life is like every day not knowing if your life is going to shatter. It's like I would call in every morning, I'd be on rounds, and my medical side of the brain would hear labs and be like, yep, Dad's dying today from shock. Dad's dying from here to this. But then my heart would be like, no, he's gonna make it. He's a fighter.
Because they told me that basically I had a 1% chance of living, and I wouldn't wake up for a year. And after all the major things that my body was going through, I could feel it.
He was in a coma for a month and a half, and then he was on the ventilator for 33 days, and my dad loves to sing. So it was even more emotional. You know, he was a dancer and then lost his leg, and so he sang, and now he's a singer and he's on a ventilator, and they're having a conversation with me that they're gonna put a hole in his neck and trach him. Like, what is my dad gonna think when he wakes up? I'm his healthcare proxy. And so it's questioning yourself every day. Did I make a decision that just killed my father or just saved my father?
It's so good to be able to touch and feel my father again, because visitors for a period of time couldn't even go into the hospital. So even just be able to be this close is a miracle and wonder in itself.
So when you wake up, and I know you'll wake up, we can dust off your wheelchair and play some basketball. I love you, miss you, and can't wait to play again.
Just when you get out the hospital, it's not, oh, I'm magically better. COVID wreaks havoc. You're fatigued. You have to do physical therapy. He actually also was gone during so much changing in the world. So much happened in 2020 then, and he wakes up to all this. And we have to help him readjust to society. He had to learn to walk. Here's a man who had to learn to walk for the third time in his life. When he was born, when he lost his leg, and now again. He had to learn how to speak without just having a valve. Here's a man who loves to sing. And he could still sing. That was the crazy part. He would put his hand over and be still able to sing, and then it healed up. And then now he can sing. I was overjoyed that he could sing. He had the tube out, and now we can slowly move. Like, for him to play basketball with us, you know, it might look like, oh, that's an ordinary thing. That is dedication and work and God and the healthcare team and just love and family and everyone. It's gonna be a long journey still, but my dad's amazing. He doesn't quit. Like, he perseveres. He is the epitome and definition of strength.
I love singing, and I sing because it releases the stress, and it's joyful for me to do that. And so I do that. So It's a Wonderful World is just the pinnacle of it. It's a wonderful world. It's what you make it. That's why it's so it hits home for me when I sing that song. Because it not only brings smiles on my face, but other people feel it. They sit there and they go, wow, all these troubles and all these things, but it is a wonderful world.
I've learned much more than I'll ever know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yeah, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Ooh, yeah.
Good job.
Thanks.
Well done.
I think of this as a golden moment, an opportunity to let the soul inside you speak buried truths, an opportunity to pick up old instruments from which you once found purpose, to pick up old relationships with people you love that once gave your heart a reason to keep pumping, a chance to mend wounds that have been left unattended, to bring light to places that have for so long been abandoned.
Man, it's wild out in these streets right now, man. I'm telling you, the murder rate is increasing because of this COVID.
To now work under the new rules whenever they happen. Nobody knew anything. I knew no more than nobody else.
Imagine if 1/3 of the jail would have died. Then what? Then what would you guys have felt?
George Floyd's lynching in 2020 was different than anything else we've had in our history because the entire globe was at a standstill. But they had to pay attention to their own reflection about what that meant for them, what that meant for their families, both black and white.